Good evening and welcome to Orenda Books at Bedtime. I'm Karen Sullivan, publisher of Orenda Books. And tonight we're travelling to Iceland for a little bit of Iceland noir. As the nights draw in, nothing better than a bit of dark, creepy, amazing thrillers. So we're going to hear tonight a bit of a double bill. We're going to hear from Lilja Sigurdardóttir, who is going to be reading from her first standalone thriller, Betrayal. This has been translated by Quentin Bates, and it's been shortlisted for probably the most prestigious prize in Scandinavian crime, Nordic crime, the Glass Key, and we are so excited about this. This is just a proof, actually. We haven't got our finished copies in, but they'll be in any minute, and this is an astonishing book. I'm going to read to you now from that. So, burned out and traumatized by her horrifying experiences around the world, aid worker Ursula has returned to Iceland. Unable to settle, she accepts a high-profile government role in which she hopes to make a difference again. But on her first day in the post, Ursula promises to help a mother seeking justice for her daughter, who's been raped by a policeman. And life in a high office soon becomes much more harrowing than Ursula could ever have imagined. A homeless man is stalking her. But is he hounding her or warning her of some danger? And why has the death of her father in police custody so many years earlier reared its head again? As Ursula is drawn into dirty politics, facing an increasingly deadly threat, the lives of her stalker, her bodyguard, and even a witch-like cleaning lady intertwine. Small betrayals become large ones, and the stakes are raised even higher. So this is incredibly dark. It's also got flashes of Lilja's trademark humor. There's a lot of political intrigue at the heart and a really good taste of Icelandic politics and social issues, but in no way is this worthy. It's an incredible page-turner, and I would urge you to pick this up. Again, it's translated by Quentin Bates. And we're going to go over to Lilja now, reading to us from her home in Iceland. Lilja.
I'm Lilja Sigurdardóttir. I'm going to read you a chapter from my new book, Betrayal, which is a political thriller, or rather to say it's a thriller with politics. I'm going to read you the backside of the book first and then the entering chapter. Burned out and traumatized by her horrifying experiences around the world, aid worker Ursula has returned to Iceland. Unable to settle, she accepts a high-profile government role in which she hopes to make a difference again. But her first day in the post, Ursula promises to help a mother seeking justice for her daughter who has been raped by a policeman, and life in high office soon becomes much more harrowing than Ursula could ever have imagined. A homeless man is stalking her, but is he hounding her or warning her of some danger? And why has the death of her father in police custody so many years earlier reared its head again? As Ursula is drawn into dirty politics, facing increasingly deadly threats, the lives of her stalker, her bodyguard, and even a witch-like cleaning lady intertwine. Small betrayals become large ones, and the stakes are raised ever higher. With the benefit of hindsight, it was clear that Ursula's promise made on her very first day in office was her downfall. At the same time, it cracked open the armor that had encased her heart for far too long. The night after accepting the keys in front of the press, she had dreamed terrible things. Her dreams were of fevered bodies, open sores, despair in the eyes of those bringing sick relatives to the camps, and then explosion after explosion, as if her former roles in Liberia and Syria had merged into one seamless nightmare. The next morning she was still dazed and exhilarated after the previous evening's reception at the ministry, and the cards bearing messages of goodwill and the flowers that had been presented to her were still piled high in her office. But the dream had left her feeling raw, so she was ill-prepared for the heartfelt rage of the woman who sat opposite her, begging her to help bring to justice the police officer who had raped her 15-year-old daughter back home in Selfoss. The girl had hardly spoken a word since, didn't want to leave the house. She had lost herself completely, the woman said, as the tears flowed down her face. She wiped them away, whimpering with frustrated fury, and asked where the case had got to. She had asked the police, the state prosecutor's office, and her lawyer, but nobody seemed to know anything. So Ursula made a promise. She promised to make it her business to find out. She took the woman's hand, who clasped it in her own, looked into Ursula's eyes, and thanked God that the Minister of the Interior was a woman. This is how the story starts, but this promise that Ursula makes is going to have big consequences for her career, and it will touch on a lot of people's lives, and soon her seat in office will be very, very dangerous. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much, Lilia. Oh, I miss Lilia. So published on the same day as Betrayal, for a double dose of Iceland noir, we have Eva Björk Eggesdottir's debut thriller, The Creek on the Stairs. So this is the first in the Forbidden Iceland series, and what a book. So her book has been compared already to Ruth Randall at her very best and darkest, and this is an immense achievement. So Eva won an award set up by Yrsa Sigurdardóttir and Ragnar Jónasson, the Blackbird Award, searching for a new crime writer writing in Icelandic, a language that is of course in danger of dying with so much English and so many other languages flooding its shores. This is the hardback. We haven't got the paperbacks in yet. The hardback is an exclusive edition for Goldsboro Books. So if you don't have one, they're signed and numbered, and they are going to be hot in demand. The next one is coming out next year, and it's called Girls Who Lie. It's this book and the next one are translated by the immense Victoria Cribb. And I'm going to read to you a little teeny sample of it first, and then I'm going to tell you what it's about. Everything would have been perfect if it hadn't been for the little girl. She haunted him like a shadow. If he so much as thought about her, it was as if the wind had been knocked out of him. Not that he let it show. To the outside world he was strong, powerful. But when dusk fell, the darkness took up residence in his soul, and nothing seemed to matter anymore. Okay, so this is what it's about. When the body of a woman is discovered at a lighthouse in the Icelandic town of Crane, it soon becomes clear that she's no stranger to the area. Chief Investigating Officer Alma, who's returned to Crane following a failed relationship, and her colleagues Seva and Horder commence an uneasy investigation which uncovers a shocking secret in the dead woman's past that continues to reverberate to this day. But as Alma and her team make a series of discoveries, they bring to light a host of long-hidden crimes that shake the entire community. Sifting through the rubble of the townspeople's shattered memories, they have to dodge increasingly serious threats and find justice before it's too late. Now you'll notice my very poor pronunciation of those names. You'll find at the front of this book a handy pronunciation guide, which I probably should have been using, as well as a map of Iceland and the area in which this amazing book is set. But for now, we're going over to Reykjavik in Iceland to hear from Eva. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eva Björk Eggesdottir, and this is my book coming out in October, The Creek on the Stairs. It's about CIO Alma, and it happens in my hometown, Akranes. It's a small town just outside, like 30 minutes outside of Reykjavik, with population around 8,000. And now I'm just gonna read you the first few pages. She hears him long before she sees him, hears the creaking as he climbs the stairs, one cautious step at a time. He tries to tread softly as he doesn't want to wake anyone, not yet. If it was her climbing the stairs late at night, she would make it all the way up to the top without anyone hearing a thing. But he can't do it. He doesn't know them like she does, doesn't know where best to tread. She shuts her eyes, clenching them so tight that the muscles around them ache, and she takes deep, slow breaths, hoping he won't be able to hear how fast her heart is beating. Because a heart only beats that fast when you're awake and terribly afraid. She remembers the time her father had her listen to his heart. He must have run up and down the stairs 1,000 times before he'd stopped and called her over. Listen, he'd said. Listen to how fast my heart's beating. That's because our bodies need more oxygen when we move, and it's our heart's job to provide it. But now, although she's lying perfectly still, her heart is pounding much faster than her father's was then. He's getting closer. She recognizes the creaking of the last stair, just as she recognizes the rattling the roof makes when there's a gale blowing outside, or the squeaking of the door downstairs when her mother comes home. Tiny stars appear and float across her eyelids. They're not like the stars in the sky. Those hardly ever move, and you can only catch them at it if you watch them for a long time, and you're very lucky. She's not lucky though. She's never been lucky. She can sense him standing over her now, wheezing like an old man. The stink of cigarettes fills her nose. If she looked up, she would see those dark grey eyes staring down at her. Instinctively, she pulls the duvet a fraction higher over her face. But she can't hide. The tiny movement will have given her away. He'll know she's only pretending to be asleep. Not that it will make any difference. It's never made any difference. Alma wasn't afraid, though the feeling was similar to fear. Sweaty palms, rapid heartbeat. She wasn't nervous either. She got nervous when she had to stand up and speak in front of people. Then the blood would rise into her skin, not only her face, where she could disguise the flush with a thick layer of makeup, but on her neck and chest as well, where it formed unsightly red and white blotches. She'd been nervous that time she had gone out on a date with Steiner in year 10, a 15-year-old girl with a blotchy chest and far too much mascara, who had tiptoed out of the house, praying that her parents wouldn't hear the front door closing behind her. She had waited for him to pick her up on the corner. He'd been sitting in the back of the car. He was not yet old enough to drive, but he had a friend who was. They'd not driven far and had barely exchanged a word when he leaned over and stuck his tongue down her throat. She'd never kissed anyone before, but although his tongue felt very large and invasive, she hadn't drawn away. His friend had driven calmly around while they were kissing, though from time to time she'd caught him watching them in the rear view mirror. She'd let Steinar touch her through her clothes too, and pretended to enjoy it. They had been driving down the same road she was on now. Back then, they had Lifehouse on the speakers, bass pounding from the boot. She shuddered at the memory. There were cracks in the pavement outside her parents' house. She parked the car and sat staring at them for a minute or two. Pictured them widening and deepening until her old Volvo was swallowed up. The cracks had been there ever since she was a little girl. They'd been less obvious then, but not much. Silja used to live in the blue house opposite, and they'd often played games on this pavement. They used to pretend that the biggest crack was a huge volcanic fissure full of red-hot lava, and that the tongues of flame were licking up towards them. The blue house, which wasn't blue anymore, but white, was home these days to a family with 2 young boys, both blonde with identical Prince Valiant page boy haircuts. She didn't know where Silja lived now. It must be 4 years since he'd last talked to her. Longer, perhaps. She got out of the car and walked up to her parents' house. Before opening the door, she glanced back down at the cracks in the pavement. Now, more than 20 years later, she thought of being swallowed up by them. The thought of being swallowed up by them didn't seem so bad. Thank you. I hope it was okay, despite of my accent. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to know what you think about the creek on the stairs. Thank you.
Eva, that was fantastic, and it's not every day that your debut is published. We're so excited about this. We're so excited about Betrayal, and I hope you'll join us for a month of Iceland noir. It's known for more than its volcanoes and its crime fiction and its errant beauty queens with football players. But anyway, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Orenda Books at Bedtime.